If you are a first-time firm owner, then you'd absolutely love our next guest. Our next guest for today is Justin Peterson, who is building his own firm. And also, along with that, he's building a community of accountants, CPAs, who are also building their own firm. So without further ado, I think we should start with the conversation. Justin, welcome to our podcast.
Thank you. I'm excited. Glad to be here. Thanks for inviting me on.
No worries. So what we do is I think we should start with a general introduction of who you are and what you are currently doing, and maybe we start and go from there.
Sure. Sounds good to me. So my name is Justin Peterson. I am a CPA in the United States, in the state of Iowa. And accounting is kind of my second career. I was in sales for about a decade before I went back to school, got an accounting degree and a finance degree, and ultimately my CPA license.
Right.
I recently launched my own side hustle accounting firm, just something I'm doing on the side while I'm working remote for a firm for my W-2 job.
Yeah.
And then in starting my own firm, I didn't really have anyone to lean on to share ideas with and to complain with or to share victories with.
Right.
So I ended up starting a community of just a few other accountants that it started to pick up steam, and now it's around 50 different accountants, CPAs, people who are in the profession and working on either they have a side hustle or they're just starting their own firm.
Right.
And it's been a lot of fun.
Right. So I also got introduced to you through Jason Staat's podcast, where you were talking about building a community. And I think back then it was a community of 20 odd members, and now it has grown to 50. And I'm also a member, and the conversations that goes on there, I love it actually. Because whenever you see people, you see or you hear about things that are already, some people have already built, they are already successful. And we do not have those kind of roadmaps where people are making mistakes, trying different things, learning from each other. And the community actually helps them or helps me and everyone of us, because whenever we are building a CPA firm, there are questions that always come in about sales, how you are doing your website, just simple as building a website. Is the color right? Or the CTA is perfect here? Those sort of things. And as a solopreneur, sometimes because you have to do it all by yourself, and if you have the community to, as a sounding board, as someone to get feedback from, I think that helps quite a lot.
Absolutely. You mentioned the big reason why I started this, and I wanted to start a community and be involved with people who are in the very beginning, is because there are so many different firms that I see where I'm like, oh, someday I hope to have a firm like that, but they're already successful. They're already winning. And so I didn't have a roadmap, like you said, of, okay, well, these are the mistakes that I'm making right now today. How can anybody have any ideas to recover from this? And the group has been so much fun and so helpful.
Right. Yes.
I think I get more from it. I mean, I started it, but I think I get more from it than anybody else.
No, I think everyone gets from it more than they put in, because it is a collective effort, right? So you have one ideas, but you can generate 50 more of the same idea, and whichever fits best for you, you can go and try them out. So let's back up a bit, because you mentioned that you first started in sales. Please talk me through that. Where did you start, and how that shift from sales and to accounting happened?
Yeah. So when I was in my high school, so this had been my first job territory. I got started working in retail, and I was working in an electronics store and selling computers, selling cameras, and at that point I wasn't on commission or anything, but I realized I've kind of got a knack for helping people find the products that solve their problems. And that skill kind of kept building, and I ended up moving into selling cars. Selling vehicles. And there's always anytime that somebody asks, well, what do you do for a living? And you say, I sell vehicles.
Right.
There's always this feeling of a little bit of sliminess because there's the used car salesman that nobody likes.
Yeah.
And then I left that and I began selling furniture. And when I was selling furniture, I did that for about 10 years, and that's 100% commission.
Right.
So there's no guaranteed pay. You only get paid when somebody buys and the furniture gets delivered to their home.
Yeah.
And I enjoyed that quite a bit. It wasn't everything that I wanted in a career,
Yeah.
but I enjoyed it a lot because I was helping people solve real problems. And then I began to kind of get involved in the management and the business side of it.
Yeah.
At which point I realized, oh, you know what? I like the business side of it a whole lot more than what I thought I would.
Right.
And that's what prompted me to go get an accounting degree, thinking that this would help me manage and run my own store someday.
Right.
And then I kind of fell in love with the public accounting drama and world. Got my CPA license after that.
Right. So you also went to public accounting when you were doing your CPA.
Yes. So I was a 30-year-old intern,
Right.
married, and at the time we had 2 kids. Now we have 3. But I was a dad of 2, working as an intern, studying for my CPA exam. So I was working full-time, studying full-time,
right,
and doing my best to still be involved in the house.
right. And what difference did you find? Because when we think about salespeople, they are someone who talks for a living, right? So speaking for a living, thinking about or looking at numbers and being on your own corner and trying to figure this stuff out. So what difference did you find there?
So it didn't take very long for me to kind of miss sales. Because in my office setup at my very first firm, it was kind of a small cubicle farm, and I was back in the corner.
Yeah.
And the nice thing is I named it the bullpen, but there were 6 cubicles in this room.
Yeah.
And so I got to work at least in the same room as other people, because most accountants I know are stereotypically introverted and they're just going to keep to themselves.
Right.
But even though I wasn't in sales anymore, I still had to talk to somebody.
Yeah.
And so in my mind, sales isn't about getting somebody to buy something.
Yeah.
Sales is about, it's not about what I can get somebody else to do. Sales is about meeting a need and solving a problem. And so when I approached it that way, I was like, oh, so these people in the bullpen with me, these other accountants that I'm working with, sure, they're not buying anything from me, but I'm still in sales and I can still serve them and fulfill a need for them.
Right.
And so it was a big change, and I had to really shift the way I thought about it.
Right.
But I began to kind of treat them as if they were my customers.
Right.
I wasn't pitching pens, paper, and tape to them, but I was asking the same type of questions to them that I would to somebody buying furniture or buying a car. The type of questions that, well, what do you need? I'd get to know them. I'd build rapport.
Right.
And then I would make it kind of my duty to make sure they were having as good of a day as possible.
Yeah. Nice. Yeah. So when you are starting a firm, like, when I'm also doing my own entrepreneurial thing, where I'm trying to build an international firm, right? The most difficult thing for us is sales and marketing, because culturally also we are quite introverted people. Nepali people are quite culturally introverted, and again,
okay,
when you mix it with accounting, you get you get someone who would be someone you would find just stuck in the corner doing their stuff, right? So sales, we think, is something we need to learn, and it's quite interesting that it's a reverse for you. You had a sales background, but you came in and learned the business side of things. And how has that helped you in building your firm?
Excellent question. So one of the big things that I can leverage with my sales history when I'm building a firm is I know how to get people to open up. Part of that's personality, but a lot of it's learned. I know that people love to talk about things that they know.
Yeah.
And so when I'm meeting with a prospective client,
Right.
my goal is to talk as little as possible. And that's kind of the opposite. Most people, when they're nervous and they're going into a sales conversation,
Yeah.
they want to list off these 42 bullet points of this is how I'm going to help you,
Mm.
and then this is how this is, and then this is what's going to happen, and this is the next. And none of that really matters. What matters is, does the person, and just like this podcast,
Yeah.
does the person on the other end of the camera, do they know for a fact that I care about them and that I care about their success?
Yeah.
And that's what it all comes down to. And so learning the big lesson that I had to learn was how not to talk.
Yeah.
That way, when I do say something, it's meaningful.
Yeah.
Instead of just a bunch of, we call it word vomit, where you're anxious and nervous, so you just say anything that comes to mind.
Right.
If we take the opportunity to listen and then ask open-ended questions. So one skill is don't ask yes or no questions.
Mm-hmm.
Ask questions that give that prospective client, the person on the other side of the table or the other end of the camera,
Yeah.
ask them questions that give them the opportunity to tell a story about themselves.
Mm.
And then as they do that, they're going to reveal details.
Right.
And they're going to say, wow, it's so easy to talk to you. And you're like, well, that's because I let you talk.
Yeah. Yeah. And, most people are always inside their head, and it helps to get it out. And I think people enjoy getting their perspective out in front of someone. And if there is someone who listens, I think rapport building is quite useful or quite easy there. So forgive me on hammering in or talking
No,
about
no,
too much about sales, because it's quite fascinating.
this is your podcast. This you lead the way.
Yeah. So because as accountants, that is the most difficult part of in someone who is building their firm, how to get in clients in the door, and how to help them figure out what services they would require and how we could help them. So that communication process is I think the toughest challenge for any firm owner who is just starting out. So I want to focus on that. And sales, during this whole process of getting in front of your clients and then having the opportunity to talk to them, it is quite a long process. And sales happens only at the end of that communication spectrum, where they already know you and they are open to talk to you. What things do you do for them to, or prospective clients to reach you first, and then you talk about the services or what are their problems? So what are the things that you are currently doing there?
Okay, so I would first make a distinction between sales and marketing.
Yeah.
Now, I have a lot of experience in sales, but marketing is definitely something that I'm new to.
Right.
In my past sales roles, there was an overall company that would do the marketing and bring clients in the door.
Mm.
And then it was my job when they walked in the door to build that relationship, to figure out what they need. But marketing, that's something that I'm having a lot of fun learning it, but it's something I'm still in the shallow end of the pool.
Right.
But what I've realized, and I think this is true for most things in life, I think.
Yeah.
But what I've realized is there's no success without risk.
Yeah.
And so the risk being, most accountants, and you mentioned it's not just the accounting profession,
Right.
but specifically culturally where you are,
Yeah.
in Nepal, it's introverted.
Yeah.
And then you stack accounting on top of that, and it's even
Yeah.
more introverted.
Right.
And so the idea of putting ourselves out there and in announcing to the world in one way or another, hey, I'm over here, and as uncomfortable as this makes me,
Yeah.
I know that I can help you solve a problem.
Right.
And that's, so what I'm doing on my end specifically is I'm posting to my personal Facebook. I haven't created a business page yet.
Yeah.
And my website, it's been delayed and delayed and delayed, but hopefully it'll be done soon.
Yeah.
But for all of I've had a half dozen or more different actual sales meetings that have all generated from just me posting, I think it was 6 videos on Facebook, and they were terrible.
Yeah.
Man, they were so bad because they were my first videos. But it was just me saying, okay, no matter how bad I am, if I just keep doing it, I'm going to get better.
Yeah.
And I have to just keep telling people that I'm here, because my view is very American centric. And when I look around, I know that most people here are terrified and completely confused about anything tax related. There's a big entrepreneurial culture where people dream of owning their own business, but then one of their big fears is, well, what do I do about taxes? And that one thing will keep them from launching their dream business. And so people are here anyway. People are desperate to hear that there's options.
Yeah.
When you, so I don't know what it's like in Nepal, but for listeners internationally, I'd have to imagine that it's some of the same fears, and they just want somebody to be able to go talk to.
Right. And so if they are continuously seeing you talk about tax stuff, and whenever they have questions, they already know you. They already, in some sense, they already know you. They may also like you, and then they will reach out and say, I need help here. Can you help me? But it is a long process. You post one video and you cannot expect that it will do wonders for you. It would be a quite protracted effort from your part, and gaining trust or gaining familiarity doesn't happen with one video or one post. You have to always be present.
Yeah. And one big thing that I lucked out in is one longtime friend of mine. He owns a business. He owns a salon.
Yeah.
And so he cuts hair. And he was looking for an accountant, and he knows that's what I do. So he reached out to me, and through him, through my videos, he's got people sitting in a chair locked in, and they can't go anywhere for 30 to 40 minutes because there's a guy with scissors right behind them. And he's telling them, oh yeah, if you need help with your business stuff, you should talk to Justin. Here's, check out some of his videos he's got. And so I kind of lucked out, because when a barber has somebody pretty much locked in a chair and they're just talking, and that barber knows and respects me and knows my skills, he has no problem sharing and saying, hey, well, why don't you talk to Justin about that? He's helped me with this and that. So leveraging people who who already understand your level of skill. And so you don't even have to know a bunch of people, but if you know the right person. And so one of my big marketing tips right now is go talk to your barber, go talk to the person that cuts your hair, or the person who sees a lot of the community. If you win over that one person, and for me it was real easy because we've known each other for nearly 20 years, but if you win over the right person, they'll send business your way.
Right. I recently read a book where it was talking about networking and how it can produce business or opportunities for you, and it focused on going and tapping to your network who is in the periphery, right? I don't remember the exact word. Someone who is not very directly close to you, because you already know what people that he or she knows, right? So you have to go and tap with in your network, and so there's social media that is your own speaker, right? And then there are your network who also have their own network. So business can come that way, and you have to have a mechanism where you are sending messages, not literal messages, but messages where you say to your prospective client that you are there and you are good at your job, and if help is required, then you are present for any help that they need. Right?
Yeah, absolutely.
I want to come back to why you decided on starting your own firm. Back in the last episode where I talked with Charles, he was talking about getting smitten or bitten by entrepreneurial seizure. And when did that happen to you? And why did you think that 9 to 5 would not be a long term future plan for you, but owning your own firm would be?
Yeah. So even before I got into accounting, I knew that I had an entrepreneurial seizure before I even had any marketable skills.
Right.
And so I knew that I wanted to be a business owner. Part of it is I'm not a great employee.
Yeah.
And what I mean by that is I'm an excellent worker,
Yeah.
but I have thoughts and ideas on how I think it should be done,
Right.
and I'm okay risking it a little bit to try that new thing, and I want to try the new things.
Yeah.
And so I knew that I would be completely frustrated if I were an employee my whole life.
Right.
And if I didn't have a level of control. And so when I was in sales, I thought, okay, well, this is going to be a skill that I can use wherever I go.
Yeah.
And so then at that point, it's, well, what business do I want to start? And I mentioned when I was with that company selling, I began to really enjoy learning the business side of things. So I got my accounting degree, got a finance degree, and then I started and learned about public accounting and got an internship. And I thought, oh, this is a lot of fun. I mean, it's industry wide. It's ran pretty terribly,
Right.
but I see where it could be a lot of fun. And so after my internship, that firm gave me a full-time offer. And I said, look, I want you to know that I'm super excited to accept this offer, but I'm only here so that I can eventually own this. And so whether that means you guys make a spot for me as a partner here, that's great.
Yeah.
Or if you guys say that's not an option, then I'm here until I can go somewhere else.
Yeah.
I'm in this profession to own my own business. And that's what I was very upfront. I said, that's what's going to happen.
Yeah,
so
right.
It can be with you, or it can be with somebody else, or by myself. And with that firm, it ended up being bought by a slightly larger firm. And I told them the same thing. Hey, I'm only here provided there's a spot for me, and I don't need it today. I'm not going to selfishly say I want it now.
Right.
But I need to know that there's a realistic spot for me as a partner owning this.
Right.
Otherwise, I'm out. And what ended up happening is I realized that it was kind of I call it a carrot and stick situation.
Yeah.
It's like when you want to get a horse to go somewhere, you got a stick with a string and a carrot on the end of it, and you just kind of lead it around. And I realized that there was a lady who I was working with who she had been on the partner track with air quotes.
Yeah.
And she was incredible at her job, brought in hundreds of thousands, close to $1 million a year.
Right.
And she was on the partner track for 26 years.
My God. Yeah.
And I thought, wait a second. I think I see what's going on here. Yeah. And I think it'll be 20 plus years until I'm even considered.
Yeah.
At which point I was like, this is not the spot for me.
Yeah. The finishing line was changing every year for her. So
every year.
Yeah. It would be same thing for you as well.
Yep. And I realized, if they're willing to do that to her, who's worked for that one firm for 26 years, then me, who I worked for my first firm, we were merged in, and I'm just kind of some new guy to that team. If they're going to lead her on for 26 years, they're going to do the same thing to me. So I decided to leave that firm, and I started working remote. Yeah. And admittedly, I kind of had a crisis of, I don't know what I want to do with my life. Yeah. I can't even say, I don't know what I want to do when I grow up, because I'm kind of grown up now. Yeah. But I got started with the remote firm, and working with that team, and it's a small team, they really changed my view, because I'd kind of gotten a little bit calloused and jaded. All public accounting, all partners are garbage. Yeah. all of them are selfish monsters. But then working with this new firm, they've really changed my perspective. I'm coming up on a year with them.
Yeah.
In fact, it might be like a year ago today that I interviewed, something like that. But they really changed my outlook on it. And I realized with them, oh, you know what? This isn't, they're not efficient with tech.
Mm.
They're not doing the types of work that I would love to do. But you know what? They have an atmosphere, a culture, an environment that is what I want.
Yeah.
And so when I realized that that does exist and can exist in public accounting, I thought, oh, you know what? I've seen a good model for what I want,
Yeah.
and I can start something.
Yeah. So you have an idea of what the culture you want to have, but you also have ideas that you want to bring in tech as well. So a modified version of what you were doing in that form. And how long has it been that you've started on this journey? When did you first start your firm? It's called Adventure Accounting, I guess, right? And why Adventure Accounting?
Yes.
If you can.
So Adventure Accounting. So I got the name and LLC set up like shortly after I had started my current job.
Oh, nice.
So I thought, I still wasn't exactly sure what I wanted, but I also thought, well, while I'm working remote, if this doesn't work out, I want to have kind of something on the side.
Yeah.
And so I got the LLC, but I didn't bring on any clients because I wanted to at least get through my first busy season with this new firm and make sure that things were going to be manageable.
Yeah.
And it turns out it was. But why adventure? So I guess I started it in my firm in December, but I didn't bring on my first client until June. I'll say that. So it's been just a few months. But Adventure Accounting, I started trying to figure out a name that would be a good accounting firm name, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Where it's like, okay, what is somebody going to look at and say, oh, that makes sense as an accountant, for an accountant. And so my first thought was attuned accounting. So our accounting is attuned to what you need in your business. And then I was like, but it's a good name, but that I don't really have any attachment to it, and that doesn't really mean anything to me.
Yeah, you are not attuned with the name.
Yeah, yes, it's a good name, but it was not attuned to me. And I was talking with my wife, and something we've always said to each other, because every stage of life is a new adventure, and there's always something. Every adventure is filled with celebration and fear and sacrifice and joy and victory and loss. And whenever we're going through a hard time, my wife and I, we'd tell each other, there's nobody else that I would rather be on this adventure with than you. And I was talking about how I'm excited to start this adventure, but I'm scared and I don't know what. And then and then it hit me. I was like, Adventure Accounting.
Yeah.
It's my adventure, but what I'm doing is I'm helping other people live out and be victorious in their adventure. And so it's Adventure Accounting for people who are brave enough to start a business.
It's an adventure because you are also, getting out of the track that you were actually in. So moving into unknowns. So it's kind of an adventure. And when did you decide on adding to this adventure other firm owners who share same experience? What motivated you, and how did that start? The new firm owners community that you have built and that has become 50 members strong. So how did that start?
So it all started with me like binge watching Jason Staat's videos, and he talks about his realized community, and I'm like, I don't want to pay $180.
Right.
Now I ended up biting the bullet, and I did join the realized community, and it's fantastic.
Yeah.
If somebody has the disposable income to do that, I think it's a huge benefit. I thought, man, I don't want to pay the $180 to do that, but I want some people to talk to who know what I'm going through.
Yeah.
And maybe I can find somebody. And so I had posted in the comment section, and then a couple other guys further down that Tanner and Charles, they also posted, and I was like, oh, hey, I'm going to see if I can take their YouTube name, which they happen to have their I think it was their first and last name in their YouTube handle, which is I'm so glad they did. But I think it's kind of silly because people could find you, but now they want to be found because they're starting the business. So it works out. And I found them both on LinkedIn, and I messaged them, and I got an email, and I sent, and that's how it all started. And it was this terrible email thread, and we were just talking and sharing ideas. And then I think Noah Skiles, he joined as well. And he suggested we start a Discord. It'd be easier to manage than the email thread. And that was a good move because that email thread was getting nasty. It was just so long trying to find anything. But it just started there. And I had somebody to talk to who understood. So either they were a few clients ahead of me and had already encountered some issues, or I was a client ahead of them, and we were able to share experiences. And that's what it came down to, is I wanted a group that I could be a part of that would understand what I'm going through. And now we've got about 50 people.
All right. So you started with a bunch of people, quite 3 or 4 or 5 maybe, right? And then you again went to Jason's podcast, and I think that's where a majority, the snowball now started to move.
So I had reached out to Jason, and I said, hey, I don't want to take anything from you or from your group. But could you give me some pointers on how to promote this? It's free. It's for people who are starting a firm, whether that be a brand new firm or a side hustle firm. It's for people who are new to this. And I just asked him if he had any tips for how to make it available. I'm not looking to monetize it. I just know, even after 1 week of having a conversation with the people in the group, I knew how much I was benefiting. And this right here, I think, is the absolute heart of what sales actually is. I knew how much this group was helping me, at which point I felt obligated to make it available, knowing that it could help somebody else. And so I needed to find a way to sell it. There wasn't any money exchange. There wasn't anything. I just knew that I had a solution to a problem that was very painful for me. And if it was painful for me, chances are there's somebody else who was going to benefit. And it was my duty as a salesperson to put this out there to help somebody solve a problem. And that right there is the heart of sales. It's not about exchanging money for product. It's, I know I can help someone. I know I can help them. How do I communicate that I can solve that problem? I can ease that anxiety. I can ease that pain. And that's what all sales is, if it's done right.
So in the community, I also recently, started a poll where because I was finding that most of us were married and with children, right? And the question came into my mind that, are most of us in that same boat, right? We are building our firms, but are we also family men, right? And so I started. It was quite interesting to find that 80% of were married with children. So there's some things other than the forms that we are building to connect in the human level as well. And when we were trying to figure out the podcast, I was also having trouble with my little girl, shouting around, and I didn't know how I was going to do the podcast because I'm recording this at my home today. And also the same thing.
I've got a crib right behind me. So this is my office. And at night, this is where our youngest, who's 10 months or 11 months old, this is where she sleeps. And then in the day when she naps, it's upstairs in my wife's bedroom. And so, So, I get what you're going through.
So we are juggling the same type of stuff with our life and with our work, and we are also smitten by the entrepreneurial seizure. And when you were talking about that, you wanted to have your own firm, and it was not something rational, but an idea or something, a feeling, right? So for me also, I'm a failed entrepreneur, right? So I'm coming back. The first time around, right after my internship, got three of my, including me, three of my friends, and started a firm. And it is quite hard because we didn't have any connections, and so trying and building connections was so hard that I said I give up. I cannot do it, and so I went into the industry, but it didn't, leave me. The entrepreneurial seizure, or whatever we call it. And so during COVID, I was, also working remotely, and I had a good job, a great job. But that thing again came and was hammering on my mind, right? And when I'm also building this firm, I'm also thinking about something bigger that I could do, with also connecting Nepal and the outside world, the accounting community. If we can connect them, maybe we can learn things, right? On things for ourselves, and maybe in accounting in Nepal also, we can have different ideas that can come in. So I figured that I can do something, and if someone is not doing, let me do it myself. And that's how I started. And so when I got into the community, and when I see, even if I'm not replying, I always see what the messages are being exchanged, and I feel quite connected and heard, right? Even if I'm not speaking, I
Yeah.
feel that I'm being heard. And so building community of like-minded people. We are very grateful to you because you started it, and you're the leader of the pack, the wolf pack. Okay, so let me also, because we are talking about forms, and we are talking about starting your form specifically. So why don't you also tell me if uh, there is any niche that you are targeting, particularly any sort of work that you want to do, and what sort of service or industry that you are heading towards, and trying to get clients on that sector.
Yeah, so this is excellent because I just learned a very tough lesson,
Yeah,
and you've seen in the comments
yeah.
kind of how things have developed.
Mhm.
So the niche that I'm wanting to pursue, and keeping in mind that a niche doesn't mean that's the only thing you have to do,
Yeah,
but a niche allows you to focus your marketing so that you can be effective in getting that one person or that small group or that sector
mm,
versus casting that for everybody
yeah,
and just becoming another piece of noise.
yeah,
So niching doesn't mean that's all you have to do,
yeah.
but my niche is uh, it's gonna be State Farm insurance agents.
Okay.
So there's a couple reasons to this. One, I know a decent amount about the insurance world
Yeah.
because when I was considering a career change, I did look into becoming an insurance agent and then eventually a broker.
Mm.
I decided to go the accounting route instead. But then 2 years ago, my brother became a State Farm agent and he owns an agency.
Right.
And so I've been helping him and everything from accounting work to general questions and kind of advisory services.
Yeah.
Excuse me. And I realized, oh, you know what? State Farm,
Mm.
and this is one of the, so there's several reasons I chose them. One, I do believe in insurance.
Yeah.
I think that it is one of the most important things that we can do to protect ourselves and our loved ones.
Yeah.
There's too many times I hear about somebody, whether it's in a family group or in my school group or in my church groups, I hear about, well, a husband passed away
Yeah.
or a wife passed away, and now their 60-year-old spouse
Mm.
has to go get a job
Yeah.
because there wasn't insurance, there wasn't life insurance in place.
Mm.
And so I firmly believe that insurance is an honorable profession, and so I'm happy to serve them.
Right.
And then I found with State Farm specifically, they have, I mean, State Farm allows their independent agents
Yeah.
to run their own business, but State Farm has a lot of rules from the top in order to keep things organized,
Mm.
in order to keep the compliance on track, in order to keep everything where it needs to be. And so it has to do with how many bank accounts you have, how they're used, what you're allowed to which makes it a lot easier on the accounting side of things than somebody who's just winging it on their own. And so there's a lot of reasons, some emotional, some functional and practical, that went into me choosing State Farm insurance agents as my niche. And to piggyback on this and to pull from some stuff that I've been commenting in our Discord group. My next client that I brought on was not in my niche. There's some friends, they're my mechanics, and they're fantastic. And I knew, so they had actually reached out to me. They wanted some help with their accounting. And I thought, this is fantastic. It's going to be a great client. I really like them. I know they do great work. And so I brought them on. And I'm working through them like, oh, this is more than what I had intended, but that's okay. And then it kept growing. And it's like, oh, this is a lot more. And then as I'm getting into it, we're 2.5 months in, and I realized, oh, not only is this more than I was expecting, this is close to full-time job commitment, which I just don't have the time for. And so my very second client, who they were my highest paying client. I had to call them, and I just did this. See, today is Thursday or Friday where I am. And on Tuesday this week, I called them Tuesday morning, and I didn't want to put it off. So the moment I knew they were in, I called and I said, "Hey, this is Justin. And I need to apologize, and I need to tell you that I've bit off more than I can chew when it comes to your accounting work. And I don't have the capacity to serve you in the way that we discussed. And so I need to give you your money back. And I even offered to pay for a certain software. It was $150 to get their QuickBooks Online, because I paid for their QuickBooks Online. And then I also had them pay for this other software that links their system at the shop with their QuickBooks Online. So I'm refunding them 100% of the revenue they paid me. I'm eating the cost of the QuickBooks Online subscription for 2 businesses that they run. So 2 months, 2 businesses, 2 QuickBooks subscriptions. So 4 payments there. And then the $150 to link their QuickBooks Online to their other system, I'm paying that. And so this whole, and the stress that it's cost me. Because I wandered outside of my niche, and it's not like it was adjacent to my niche. It was completely the other direction. So I wandered outside of my niche that I had been studying and training in, and it ended up biting me big. Loss of sleep, loss of money, loss of time, loss of reputation. But I know that's not niche specific, but I did want to just share. I want to make sure that I share that failure as much as I can to help somebody else. So I'm going to stick with my niche moving forward.
No,
I learned my lesson.
And I find it quite interesting that you were courageous and you wanted to get out of that niche. And if there were in your place someone else, they would not want to take that financial hit and maybe slog through that. But you were clear that in the long run it would not be good for my firm, for me, for my work, or the time commitment that I might need to put in. So you decided quite early and firmly, and it I think it takes quite a lot of courage also to fight your clients, and one of your first clients even.
Yep, it hurt. It hurt. But it was the right move. And most importantly, it was the right move for my family, for the time commitment that it would have taken. And it's the right move for that client. I realized I am not going to be able to serve them. So I could have kept them on and kind of kept it limping along and cashed that check every month until they got upset and fired me. But at that point, that crosses a territory with my own integrity. And that's, nope, I learned my lesson. I'm going to stick with my niche. And so definitely, and another thing about niching. So like I said, State Farm insurance agents, that's my ideal niche. You really only have to learn one industry, one way of doing it. If you stick with your niche. And I realized, because we've talked, you've already mentioned a few times, we've talked about how a 9 to 5 job isn't what we're after as we're all building our firms. And if I stick with my niche, if I'm disciplined and willing to say no to things outside of that, then I could feasibly, it'd be realistic for me to work 20 hours a week,
Yeah.
maybe 25, and make twice as much as I do at my regular job as an employee.
Mm.
But I've got to be disciplined and willing to say no to early revenue.
Yeah. So what I find with niching is that it also bring in the benefits of scale, right? So whenever you are bringing other clients in the same niche, so your process is already you have already defined your process, and now everything is transferable. The reports that you generate, you have already set the templates. Now you can just bring in the numbers, the chart of accounts,
Yep.
same chart of accounts for everyone. And also I've also found that accounting firms are also now niching with accounting softwares as well. So someone might be using just QuickBooks, or someone might be using just Zero, and I have found people that have said no to their clients. If someone is using Zero, if you are using QuickBooks, and if you want to be my client, if you are prepared to come in and get your stuff into Zero, then we'll have you. Otherwise, I think you should find another accountant for yourself. So I think there is economics of scale there, and also with the messaging, you do not have to give multiple messages to multiple people, but to a few number of people multiple times, and it would generate more memorable messaging. So I think niche
Yeah.
is the way to go, right?
Yep. I think
Okay.
you're absolutely right. I'm with you on that.
Yeah. And also, tell me about pricing. Have you thought of pricing, and how are you approaching how you price your clients?
Well, I'll tell you this. I did a bad job pricing that one that I had to let go.
Yeah.
It was my highest price yet, so I was super nervous.
Mhm.
But I did not ask enough questions and get enough information
Yeah.
on the front end. And so the pricing, I don't like doing an hourly pricing
Yeah.
because that incentivizes me to go really slow,
Mhm.
and it incentivizes the client
Yeah.
to hound and harass me to get things done faster.
Yeah.
So I don't like hourly, and I would prefer to have a good system for value pricing,
Yeah.
which is where I price based on the value that I deliver to the client, and then it's a fixed monthly fee. But that's a skill that you have to learn.
Yeah.
That's not something you learn overnight. And so I'm willing to take the time investing in that skill.
Yeah.
But then you'd mentioned there are certain economies of scale that can be unlocked
Yeah.
when you niche.
Yeah.
There are certain economies of scale that can be unlocked when you have a very easy to follow pricing structure.
Mhm.
And so I'm considering, well, what if I bring somebody else onto my firm at some point?
Yeah.
I don't want anybody in my firm who can't also sell.
Yeah.
And I'm not saying they have to go out and just bring in a ton of business. They need to be able to, if they're if they're at a party with friends, at a birthday party,
Yeah.
and somebody mentions that they're looking for an accountant, they need to be able to talk to that person and say, yeah, for a business of your size,
Yeah.
we'd be looking X amount a month,
Yeah.
between this range. They need to be able to have that conversation,
Yeah.
because if they can do that, and it's not just me in charge of putting the dollar amounts out there,
Yeah.
then that would help the firm to grow much more smoothly and scale much better. But I haven't unlocked the secret to pricing yet,
Yeah.
and I'm definitely learning and trying. There's a lot of good reading out there about how to price,
Yeah.
but nothing that says this is what you need to do.
Yeah. So when we talk about value pricing, it's quite philosophical at times, right? Because
Oh yeah.
what value are you actually providing them, and it is in the mind, right? So you cannot really put it into numbers, and so you'll have to pull it from thin air, essentially, when you are first
Yep.
starting out out and trying to figure out what value we are providing. So I think that's quite challenging, and I think it will take some time to figure out, and maybe start with whatever the in the industry. I think the three pricing module is being used by a lot of people, and there's value pricing. Maybe I think put your feet weight a little bit in one and then figure out whether that works, and again try and figure out the other thing with the value pricing as well. Yeah. Okay, so now I think let me ask you the question, because we talked about having families, having kids, and having a 9 to 5 job, and then starting your own firm. So you're building, you're not already into that cycle where you just come in and do your job, because it takes quite a lot of mental effort as well. And so how are you tackling that with your family life? What are the challenges, and how are you doing what you're doing?
Well, I need to do it better than what I'm doing.
Yeah.
So for me, in fact, not one of, the key thing has been making sure that I communicate to my wife so that she has the opportunity to buy into the whole idea of me starting an accounting firm.
Mhm.
Now, she was already on board with that. She knows that's the direction I want to go.
Yeah.
She knows that if I'm an employee the rest of my life and I never try this, that I'm going to just kind of be frustrated all the time.
Yeah.
Which is silly. I do think that life would be easier if we never got bit by the entrepreneurial bug.
Yeah.
We could just clock in, clock out, enjoy our time off.
Mhm.
But it's too late for that.
Yeah.
And so for me, a key strategy has been not just defining the scope of work
Yeah.
for my clients, but defining the scope of work for me. I have a desire to go above and beyond
Mhm.
in everything that I do. I have a desire to give 100% in everything that I do.
Yeah.
But that's just not possible all the time.
Mhm.
And so instead of being in one of my current clients, I do monthly bookkeeping for them, and that'll eventually roll into the tax return.
Yeah.
But then they pay for access to me for questions, and so they'll call me throughout the month. Well, I initially, for the first couple months, I felt like I had to be in their QuickBooks
Yeah.
2 days a week or 3 days a week, just making sure that everything was always live and up to date.
Yeah.
And that was stressing me out because it doesn't take long to do the work.
Yeah.
But if you add in, well, you gotta log in, you gotta do this, you gotta check around, you want to make sure things balance, you want to,
Mhm.
well, it would eat up a significant chunk of time every week
Yeah.
with just one client. And I was like, this is terrible.
Mhm.
And I had to define for myself what was acceptable. And I realized, excuse me, I muted myself that time
Yeah.
when I coughed. So I realized I had to define for myself what was acceptable. And instead of being in their books multiple times a week,
Yeah.
I could be in their books on Monday.
Yeah.
And so Monday I spend 1 hour, or usually it's more like 20 minutes.
Yeah.
I spend 20 minutes in their books, and now it got to the point where it's okay. So every other Monday, now that I've got a system in place, and then I can knock out the work, and it leaves plenty of time for family. And so what I'll usually do is it'll be first thing in the morning before I start my other job,
Yeah.
or it'll be right after in the evening. I'll hop in, get everything done, take care of it. Now we're in the beginning of October here, so for me, I need to make sure all their accounts are reconciled and kick out their reports. So that'll take longer than my regular bookkeeping.
Yeah.
And then I'll just plan to do that tonight. It's Friday, and so
Yeah.
I'll just plan to do it after work today.
Okay. So you are taking your family also seriously, your work also seriously, but trying to bring in that balance that is very much required for you to do a good job with the clients that you are serving, but also your own family, right? So that's quite good.
Yeah.
So what I wanted to ask before we go is that what is your plan for the future? Where you see your firm in 6 months or 1 year, and when are you planning on transitioning from being a part-time CPA firm to a full-time CPA firm?
Okay, so my views on this have changed substantially over the last 2 months, over the last 4 weeks even.
Yeah.
So originally, I was thinking, okay, I want to be full-time on my own in 12 months.
Yeah.
And so that would have been June of 2025. And that is a realistic goal.
Yeah.
If somebody is desperate, if somebody has the skills, if they're a seasoned accountant, if they're a CPA, it's a realistic goal to have your own firm and be all on your own in 12 months. It takes a lot of work.
Yeah.
And you give up the ability to say no to clients that are not ideal. So that was I've got a small dog trying to get in my office. So that was my initial goal, was 12 months. So June of 25. And then in the last few weeks, I've realized that I do not want to give up the ability to say no. And so I'm okay extending my time to be on my own by several years if it needs to be, in order to be the right life, the right work for me. And so instead of putting a time on, by this day I want to be on my own, my goal is to market appropriately to the right clients, to price appropriately, and to only bring on clients that are going to allow me to build a firm that will eventually let me work 20 to 25 hours a week, making $150,000, $200,000, which here in Iowa it's an outrageously great income. I don't know how the translation is to Nepal, but the average income here where I live, the average household income runs around $55,000 to $60,000, I think. And so if I'm making 3 times or more of that, it's totally realistic with our chosen career field. I mean, you can set your price and you can make as much money as you want if you solve big enough problems, painful enough problems. But as far as 6 months and 1 year from now, 6 months from now, I would like to have my website done, hopefully. The gal who's building it for me, it's just getting delayed. And it just happens. Things outside of our control happen. But I'd like to have my website done, my marketing in order. I'm having an office built for my backyard. Since we adopted our youngest, we don't have spare bedrooms anymore. And so now I'm working in my baby room. And so I'm having a separate small office built for me. I'd like to get that done. And then I'd like to, when that's done, I'll be able to have my camera and lighting just set up all the time so that I can do marketing more effectively and efficiently. And I'd like to lean into that. And that's going to allow me to be more involved in the podcast, to be more involved in the Discord group, to market more readily, and to bring on the right clients. And so I'm trying to make my goals all things that I do and not goals like, well, that I want X amount of clients. And I do want that. But all I can do is market, put myself out there. And so I'm going to commit to that. So 6 months from now, I'm going to be in my office and marketing on a regular basis to the right niche. 12 months from now, 12 months from now, that feels like it's so long, so far away. But I know it's not. 12 months from now, I would like to be making enough money on my adventure accounting that I'm able to begin to stockpile a going away fund where I'm ready to transition. And I'm not going to transition at that 12-month mark. That's not what I'm saying. I'd like to be stockpiling some money on the side for the business to help support me and my family when we do make that full transition eventually. So maybe 3 or 4 more clients. So after the right client.
So after a year, you want to be able to now think about transitioning. Now put away money. When you do transition, you'll have a very smooth transition. Okay, so I think for this podcast for today, we have covered so many things. We talked about the community that you built. We've talked about your firm that you are building, and the plans for you have for your firms in the next 6 months, 1 year. So thank you very much, Justin, for sharing your experience, and thank you once again for building that community and having me also as a part of that community.
Thank you so much for having me on, and I enjoy having you in the group. So you were an excellent addition.
Thank you very much. This has been the podcast for today, and we'll see you next time.